This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
In a rural area of Canada, a woman claimed to see unusual red flames and an extraordinary flying object landing in a field behind her house. 6 months later, this remarkable videotape, broadcast tonight for the first time on network television, seemed to verify her account. Could it be evidence of a close encounter or a clever, sophisticated hoax? After Geraldine George separated from her husband Larry, she had no idea that he was watching her every move. Finally, Larry George erupted in a jealous rage, shot Geraldine, and left 2 innocent people murdered in his wake. In September of 1992, this mysterious young woman showed up in a small California community. She has no identification and can neither speak nor hear. Perhaps you know who she is and where she came from. Also, a poignant, heartwarming update. While watching a recent broadcast, one of our viewers was surprised to discover that he was the subject of an intense 30-year search by his long-lost sister. We'll share in their remarkable reunion on tonight's Unsolved Mysteries. The Canadian township of West Carleton lies 40 miles north of the Canadian-United States border in the province of Ontario. Life in West Carleton is usually unremarkable, but late in 1991, one resident had an extraordinary experience. On August 18th at around 10 p.m., Diane Labinek had just put her children to bed. Her husband was out running an errand when the dogs began to howl.
I walked right to the window and I saw flames right on the back of the field. Extremely red flames and lots of smoke. It didn't look like a fire. I know what a fire looks like when you start a fire out there, and the grass was very dry, so if you start a fire, you will see it moving, whether this way or closer to the woods, and the fire was standing on one spot only. I saw a ship coming down close to the flames. Right on top of the ship, I saw a blue flashing light, and another light was on the bottom, very bright. I didn't know what to do. I was looking at it for about 10 minutes or so. And then the ship went a little bit back over the trees, and it disappeared. And I saw all the flames turn out at the same time. I don't think I'd like to see it again. It's very scary. I've lived here for many, many years, and I have never been so scared in my life. It did enter my mind to phone the police. When this was all over, I came to the telephone, but I said, what am I going to tell them? I'm going to tell them I have seen flares out there at 10 o'clock or past 10 o'clock at night, and there was a ship up there. Who is going to say, okay, Diane, that's fine, we're coming over? So that's why I didn't call.
According to Labinek, 10 minutes after the mysterious lights abruptly blinked out, a helicopter appeared, just as unexpectedly. The unmarked craft flew low to the ground, over the field where the unexplained lights had appeared. After crisscrossing the area, it flew over Diane's house and rushed off into the night. At the crack of dawn, Diane Labinek ran out to the empty fields which surround her house, searching for evidence of the previous night's events.
I searched everything. There was no marks, there was no spots, there was no matches, there was just nothing. The only person I told is my mom and my husband. It kind of bothered me inside for a long, long time, not to come out forward and say it to anybody. But when I went out on the field and I could not find anything, who is going to believe me that this really happened? So I kept it to myself.
The 1991 sighting was a second unusual event Diane Labenek had witnessed in West Carlton. In 1989, she was one of several residents who observed a sudden explosion of extraordinarily brilliant light over a nearby swamp. Labenek might have remained silent about the 1991 episode if not for this controversial videotape, which seems to verify her account. The tape was mailed to the office of a UFO researcher, and tonight it will be shown for the first time ever on national television. In February of 1992, 6 months after Labenek's sighting, a package from Canada arrived at the Edgewater, Maryland office of Bob OECHSLER. A former NASA mission specialist, OECHSLER is now a well-known UFO researcher. The package had no return address. Inside were documents, pictures, a map, and the videotape, all pertaining to the 1991 incident at West Carlton.
Most unusual, there seemed to be somewhat of a symbol with regard to the videotape. On the label was the name Guardian, and it was accompanied by a fingerprint. Guardian, to me, was an enigma, certainly nothing I had heard about in the UFO literature, so it was a mystery starting from scratch.
At the time, OECHSLER was unaware of Labenek's sighting, but he would later find that the video depicted what she has reported with stunning accuracy. The tape showed a cluster of brightly burning red flames similar to flares. To the right hovered a dark disc-like object emitting a bright glow from its underside. The object was capped by a rapidly strobing blue light. It is among the most convincing documentations of a UFO OECHSLER had seen in his 12 years of research.
It was clearly a disc-looking shape. We could resolve that because the flashing light on top would reflect off of the curved surface of the disc. I got a sense initially that this was a real event occurring in a field as opposed to some prop set up in a room somewhere. It had such an extraordinary amount of luminosity characteristic to it that I kind of had a sense I might be dealing with something that was potentially authentic here.
The map sent with the videotape shows the area of West Carlton, Canada as a location where the tape had been made. OECHSLER went to West Carlton along with UFO researcher Graham Lightfoot.
Diane, can you tell us exactly what you saw that night?
Together they interviewed Diane Labenek, whom Lightfoot had met when he investigated her 1989 sighting.
Yes, I seen a bright light.
What time of the day was this? This was at night, eh?
Yes, it was at night. I would say about 10 o'clock.
To their surprise, Labenek described exactly what the two researchers had seen on Guardian's videotape.
It was white.
When we talked to Diane about the sighting, asked her had she seen anything, her description was so vivid that it's something I didn't think she could have made up. She had not seen a tape. She had no idea what we knew, and yet she was able to describe things that we already knew from the tape.
And when he showed me the tape, it was exactly what I've seen. And it was still scary for me, but at least I had something to go by. Something that now I can tell the people, because now I have a little bit more evidence.
It's one of the clearest videos I've seen that show a structured object.
Dr. Bruce Maccabee, a U.S. Navy physicist and photoanalyst, has studied UFOs for years.
And here's the beacon light with a blue light, evidently, a reflection down here on the body of the craft, the outline of the object itself that you can see, some sort of dark lines that appear. Some brightness structure indicating something generating light is hanging down below the object. It's generating green light as well as blue light. Probably there is other structure in here, which, however, the glare from this bright light is blurring out.
Dr. Maccabee, who believes the tape is not a hoax, was particularly intrigued by the bright, strobing light.
Now, first of all, it's an unusual one because it's blue and it's very fast. It was running about 7 cycles per second. This is much faster than ordinary flashing beacons on aircraft, for example, that typically run about 1 flash per second or maybe 2 flashes per second. The section of the video which shows the object just sort of appearing over a rise is quite convincing to me. Would be what you would expect if somebody were in the field trying to get closer to it and not knowing how close he could get. And so he turns on his camera while he's walking. He knows he's going to come up over a rise and see it, and you can see in the video farther and farther down until you see the whole device. Suddenly the light coming towards him gets brighter and brighter. You get a great big diffuse reflection or image in the camera, which suggests to me that this object shined a beam, a blue beam, right at him.
Dr. Maccabee estimated the unknown object to be 20 to 30 feet in diameter. According to OECHSLER, the object's apparent size argues against it being a hoax.
It appeared to be so large that it would not be logical to try to set all this up at night under darkness. There would have been evidence during the day of movement, of generators, of somebody hauling cables, maybe a big apparatus or something that they would have had to bring in there for that night. Clearly, if there was a hoax involved, Diane would have seen evidence of it in advance.
Audio analysis of the tape revealed only the distant barking of dogs, perhaps those reported by Diane Labenek. The craft itself seemed to be silent. There was no audible trace of power generators, which, if the object was staged, would have been necessary to run its massive lights. Dr. Robert Nathan of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory reviewed the tape in a non-official capacity. Dr. Nathan could not explain the images, nor could he categorically dismiss the tape as a hoax. In a puzzling coincidence, low-flying helicopters have cruised over West Carlton regularly since the August '91 incident. According to Labenek and other local residents, the helicopters are black, green, or maroon in color. They are unmarked with darkly tinted windows. The Canadian military denies any involvement in this incident. Where the helicopters come from and what they are searching for remains a mystery.
The helicopters that are used in this area of Canada do not fly low in that area. We have designated flying training areas about 30 miles west of here. We also have them north. Therefore, there are no requirements for our military helicopters to go and fly near private citizens' property like that.
Either this is one extraordinarily elaborate hoax, a military operation on private property, or something that's very unusual in the UFO category, something suggesting perhaps non-human technology.
The key to the entire episode lies with a person using the name Guardian. The presence of this mysterious informant in a remote field late at night with video camera in hand just in time for a UFO sighting can hardly be ascribed to luck. According to Bob OECHSLER, whether the event was real or an elaborate hoax, Guardian had prior knowledge that it was going to happen.
I think Guardian has to be connected to the event in some way. I don't see any way Guardian could have just happened onto this. I don't see Guardian as a UFO investigator. Guardian is much more involved in this than the evidence even suggests, in my opinion.
Virtually nothing is known about Guardian's true identity. Curiously, the secretive informant has contacted UFO researchers only in connection with the 2 sightings reported by Diane Labenek and others in West Carlton.
When we started looking into the events, it would be simple to say that it was a hoax because Diane was involved in both of them. But when you get to know Diane and see the way she lives and the circumstance, it's apparent that she wasn't involved in any way other than being an observer.
But purported military documents that arrived with a videotape raised serious questions about Guardian's credibility. Among other preposterous claims, the papers allege far-reaching conspiracies involving UFOs, Red China, and nuclear weapons.
There was some question immediately with regard to the authenticity of the documentation. It didn't look like it was a typical government document, even Canadian government documents, of which I had no familiarity at the time.
This document is clearly a fabrication. There are way too many errors in the document to make it authentic. Someone with very little effort could have come a lot closer than this.
Also included on the videotape are obscure images which Guardian claimed show an alien being.
Clearly, this could have been someone dressed up in a costume, but that posed a major question. If, in fact, the video images of the disc were authentic, why would anyone contaminate such an extraordinary event with fake images of alien creatures?
The stories that he writes to go along with the events don't seem to match the quality of the event itself, if that makes any sense. The stories are rather far-fetched, and yet the events are seen by credible witnesses.
In spite of the dubious images and questionable documents, many experts believe that the events shown on the tape did indeed take place. What really happened in the fields of West Carleton? In the wake of its brief appearance during the summer of 1991, the strange luminous object left only questions. Questions perhaps the person called Guardian alone can answer.
This is either an extraordinary, top-secret flying vehicle of somebody's government, or it is of a non-human origin. Having no contact with Guardian is probably the biggest frustration to an investigation like this. We don't know who Guardian is, what Guardian represents. We don't know if Guardian was sent or went on his own. We have no idea what the solutions to many of these mysteries are going to be. We may never know.
On a recent broadcast, we brought you the poignant story of a woman named Brenda Merrill.
Just leave that stuff right there.
In 1961, Brenda's mother bought a restaurant in Lawrenceville, Pennsylvania, and moved her children to a farmhouse just outside town.
I'm going to ride into town with the movers, so you have to take care of your brothers and sisters.
Well, aren't you coming back up here tonight?
I don't know.
Brenda was the oldest child, and at the age of 16, she suddenly found herself responsible for the welfare of 5 brothers and sisters.
It was just like a normal family, because I was like their mother, you know. It just went, you washed clothes, you did the dishes, you got their dinner, and you got their breakfast, and you got their supper, and you get them scrubbed up for bed, you know, and you sing them songs before they go to sleep, you know, like a normal household.
Through a long, hard winter, Brenda struggled to care for the children. Often she was forced to hunt small game to keep food on the table. Finally, as winter broke into a damp, chilly spring, a fire at the farmhouse drove the youngsters to seek refuge with their mother, but she was unwilling to take them in. Brenda tried to keep the children herself, but was forced to give them up, one by one.
You take good care of him, okay?
Don't worry, honey, we'll take good care of him.
I was about 16. Okay.
Eventually, Brenda was reunited with her sister Linda and her brother Butch. Together, they set out to find the 2 youngest brothers, Eric and Keith. On the evening of our broadcast, Brenda Merrill's single-minded determination to bring her family back together finally began to pay off. An hour after Brenda's story aired, a man named Keith Robinson of Hornell, New York, contacted our telecenter and said that he was Brenda's long-lost brother.
Brenda called me that same night, like 5 minutes later. And we was talking, and I mentioned about having a photograph that she had aired on the program. And I basically told her, you know, detail for detail what was in the photo, so she knew that I was her brother.
On December 19, 1992, just in time for Christmas, Keith Robinson and his wife and children traveled to Montour Falls, New York for an emotional reunion with his sisters Brenda and Linda and his brother Butch. He had not seen them in more than 30 years.
I thought a lot about what they were going to be like, you know, if they were going to love me for just being their brother or love me for what I am now today, if they were going to accept my family into their heart, because, you know, it's over a 30-year period of waiting and looking.
It's a great Christmas present you don't know. He is the greatest Christmas present, especially his wife and kids, too. He has a nice wife and kids.
For everyone involved, the reunion was bittersweet, their joy tempered by the knowledge that one brother was still missing. Eric Nickerson was still a toddler when his family was split apart. Just 5 weeks after we filmed this update, he too was found. Eric's name is now Richard Moore, and he lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma with his wife and 2 children. In February of 1993, he was reunited with his sisters Brenda and Linda after more than 30 years of separation. Brenda Miller's long search to find all her brothers and sisters was finally over.
Okay, smaller plane with the propeller in the front. The propeller's in the front.
Recently, this young woman was found wandering through the streets of a small California community. She was completely incapable of speaking or hearing and carried no identification. For the past 5 months, local social workers have been counseling her and still know almost nothing about her. Tonight, they ask your help to find the young woman's family or friends. Our story begins in Port Hueneme, California on September 8, 1992. That afternoon, a motorist came across the young woman frolicking on the meridian of a busy thoroughfare.
Can I help you? You don't hear what I'm saying? Do you live around here?
The motorist quickly determined that the woman was hearing impaired. Fearing for her safety, he took her to the Ventura County Police Station.
Hi, what's your name?
The police attempted to question the woman, but found that she was unable to communicate who she was or where she had come from.
A wallet.
The only clue to her identity was a receipt from a bank in San Diego, 200 miles to the south. The authorities could see no reason to detain the young woman, and a short time later, she was released.
I'm 10-6 with the subject. I'll bring her into the station.
The next day, a patrolman came upon the same young woman once again in the middle of a busy street, less than a mile from the police station. She appeared to be terribly confused.
It's okay.
This time, the authorities placed her in a homeless shelter for women.
When she first came to this shelter, she had no means of formal communication with anyone, and so a lot of it was pantomiming and mimicking and what is known as home sign language.
So this is a picture of you?
Communications specialist Chris Burrows was enlisted to help pierce the walls of silence that surrounded this most unusual Jane Doe.
Here we go. One of the first things that we tried to do was we wanted to get a name and an age so that we could find out if we were dealing with a juvenile or whether we were dealing with an adult. All right, let's see if we can figure out her name here. Let's try this. We sat down with paper and pen, and we tried communicating with her that way.
Let me try my name.
All right. We wrote our names, Marty and I. I wrote my name, gestured to myself several times. Marty wrote her name, gestured to herself several times.
Who are you? You try.
And then we asked her to write her name, if she could write. Your name.
This is me.
Okay, I think she got it here. L, 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 V? No.
The young woman was apparently unable to write, and it was clear that she had no formal training in sign language, but she was able to spell out her name using symbolic hand gestures.
X. And when I copied it onto the paper, it was instant recognition, and in our field, instant recognition means this has got to be the truth.
The name she spelled out was Luxie, which may be a derivative of a Spanish first name. For convenience sake, Chris and Marty dubbed her Lucy.
Let's see if we can get an age here. She got very excited when she found that someone finally had known her name and had gotten it. We did the same thing with her age. How old are you? 10, 20, 2, 1, 23. 23? You're 23. Okay.
Despite the ease with which Chris and Marty determined Lucy's name and age, finding someone who knew her would present a far greater challenge. In the days and weeks after Lucy surfaced in Port Hueneme, the FBI and various missing persons organizations ran checks on her, but all turned up empty. The only solid lead was a bank receipt from San Diego found in her pocket, but that too led nowhere, and authorities now find themselves at a dead end.
Baby? The baby. Little baby? You draw the baby.
This is Lucy as she appears today. Over the past few months, she has slowly begun to reveal fragmentary glimpses into her past.
There's just a particular story that she tries to tell about having come over on an airplane and having had a child, and the child being taken from her, and that she was left here. One of the things that's puzzling about Lucy is she has all of the grooming habits and she has all of the appearances of someone who has been well kept. She's been taken care of all of her life. She doesn't have cooking skills, but she understands to come and eat when it's time to eat. So I think that she's been in an environment where she's been well cared for and well loved by somebody. She's not been on, when they found her in the beginning, I don't think she had been on the streets very long. Although the genuine concern is for her immediate safety and her immediate protection, there are people out there who know Lucy, who have loved her in the past, who have taken care of her, and she needs to be with those people.
Next, a man shoots his estranged wife and two of her neighbors in a murderous rampage. February 12th, 1988, Talladega, Alabama.
All right, well, thanks for the ride, girl. Give me a call this weekend, maybe.
At 8 p.m., Geraldine George, a 27-year-old mother of two, returned home from work. She had been separated from her husband, Larry George, for 6 months. Despite a restraining order, he had continued to harass her. Larry was a former Army enlisted man who considered himself a survivalist. That evening, his obsession with Geraldine would turn deadly.
Geraldine went inside her apartment and dropped her belongings off, her purse and whatever other items she had brought home from work. She walked next door to Janice Morris's apartment and Ralph Swain's apartment.
It's Geraldine.
Geraldine had become friendly with her next-door neighbor, Janice Morris. Janice had two young children of her own and had agreed to take care of Geraldine's children while she was at work.
All right, say goodbye to everyone. Say goodbye. Say goodbye.
See that?
She went in, sent her kids home, talked briefly with Janice. It was rather brief because Janice was on the telephone with her mother. Geraldine, after talking briefly with Janice, walked back next door, and as she entered her apartment, Larry George was already inside the apartment talking to her kids.
Oh, that's good.
Larry, what are you doing in my house?
I'm here with my children.
You know you're not supposed to be here. We've been through this before. You want me to call the police again?
Where you been?
It's none of your business.
You know you're supposed to be here taking care of them.
I want you out of my house.
I don't want those people taking care of my kids.
You don't tell me what to do anymore.
Look, you're gonna listen to me. You're gonna listen to me.
Larry, put the gun away.
Ain't nobody running my house but me.
Honey, I want you to go upstairs. You call your granddaddy and you tell him that Larry's here. Go on. Larry, no! No!
Let go.
No! No!
Geraldine ran next door to get help. Janice was still on the phone with her mother.
Call the police. Larry's next door and he has a gun. Please hang up the phone.
I heard a woman's voice yelling, "Janice, Janice, call the police." So I asked Janice, who was that? She said, that girl just left out of here. I said, what's the matter? She said, I don't know.
Yeah, it's the girl, Geraldine next door, right?
She said she'd call me back.
Let me call you back, okay? Bye-bye.
And that's the last I heard. Last time I heard her voice.
Before Janice could call the police, Larry George shot her in the chest.
Larry, please stop. No.
Then in front of Janice's 2 children, he took aim at Geraldine as she lay cowering on the floor. Janice's boyfriend, Ralph Swain, heard the commotion and ran downstairs. Larry shot him in the back of the head. Then, according to a neighbor, Larry George calmly strode out of the apartment and disappeared. Janice Morris was pronounced dead at the scene. Ralph Swain was rushed to a local hospital, where he died a short time later.
This murder was stupid. I mean, Larry George didn't go there to kill Ralph Swain. Larry George didn't go there to kill Janice Morris. Ralph or Janice, neither one knew Larry. They were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it was senseless.
Geraldine George survived the shooting, but was left paralyzed from the waist down. The next day, a Talladega County Sheriff's deputy was dispatched to a campsite 6 miles out of town. A car had been discovered, hidden in the brush. It was registered to Larry George.
We found a campsite, personal belongings belonging to Mr. George. We didn't find the weapon that was used in the attack. There was no weapons found with the car. He had been living in the car. There was a lot of clothing in the car. We found a notebook where it appeared that Mr. George had been keeping a diary as to who came and went at his wife's apartment, and camouflage clothing. Since Larry's left the area, we found that he spent some time in South Alabama with his sister. He spent some time in the Florida Panhandle area, which is where he attended truck driving school. A large quantity of his belongings were recovered in the Roanoke, Virginia area along some railroad tracks.
I want Larry George to pay for what he did. I want him to pay because he didn't have any business killing anybody. I don't know why he killed my daughter. I don't know why he killed Ralph. But I think he should be punished for what he did.
After the most recent broadcast of this story, the authorities were contacted by an Unsolved Mysteries viewer. The viewer claimed to have seen Larry George fishing on the banks of the Christina River in Wilmington, Delaware. 3 days later, 2 police detectives were dispatched to the area. For our cameras, the officers recounted their dramatic meeting with Larry George.
This is where we first encountered Larry George at, right here. We began a conversation with him about fishing. At this time, he wanted to take us over here to where his pole was in the water and show us exactly where he was fishing at. We got about here and we started talking again about fishing. And it was at this time where myself and Detective Pinkett made eye contact and I identified myself as a police officer, Larry. At this time, a brief struggle ensued right about here. We all 3 fell to the ground here. We got back to our feet, still struggling, and at that point, we just turned and threw Larry into the water.
While the officers regrouped, George attempted to flee downriver, but backup units quickly cornered him, and he surrendered without further struggle. At George's campsite, police found a makeshift bunker. complete with generator, heater, television, and stove. The subsequent discovery of several weapons, including a spear gun and a sawed-off shotgun, led investigators to believe that George had been prepared to resist arrest by whatever means necessary.
He knew he was wanted for murder. He wasn't going to be taken alive if he would have put himself in his hideout, and if we'd have discovered it, he probably would have had gunfire and officers would have been hurt.
On April 27, 1994, Larry Donald George was extradited to Alabama to face charges of murder and attempted murder. It was a long-awaited moment for Geraldine George and the families of Ralph Swain and Janice Morris.
They're delighted that this is kind of bringing this to an end, and I can understand their feelings about the situation simply because it's been a long 6 years, and really not knowing where he is and if he would show back up. I'm sure that has brought a lot of discomfort and a lot of sleepless nights to them, so I know that they're very happy that this is shortly being drawn to a close.
Next, a man searched for the sisters and brother he has not seen for nearly 30 years. In the summer of 1961, Harley and Ronnie Price of Wyandotte, Michigan, gathered their children together to pose for this happy family portrait. But appearances can be deceiving. Within 3 years, Harley and Ronnie would be permanently separated and their children scattered, torn apart by alcoholism. Eugene Price was just 9 years old at the time.
I want to see my sisters and I want to see my brother. That's what I want. I feel responsible to let them know about how things happened between my mom and dad, things that they may not understand because they were younger, that I spent more time with my dad and mom and know some of the answers. But most of all, I want to find my sisters and my brother because they're my family.
Eugene Price has spent most of his adult life searching for his sisters and brother. He wants them to know that they were not abandoned as children, but were the innocent victims of their parents' tumultuous marriage. Today, along with his brother Dean and his mother Ronnie, Eugene hopes that one of our viewers can help reunite them with the rest of the family.
I'll talk to you later.
It was the spring of 1953 in New York City. Harley Price, nicknamed Smokey, was a Navy veteran who was working as a roofer when he began dating a co-worker's daughter.
Ronnie. Ronnie, right?
Yeah.
You know me?
Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah, I work for your dad. I do roofs.
Okay, that's right. I've seen you come by the house a few times for the truck, right?
Yeah.
Eugene's mother, Ronnie, was just 16 and was immediately swept off her feet.
So?
She had no idea that Harley was married with a child at home.
Trying to get out of the house as much as possible.
When I first met Harley, I thought he was very good looking, very charming. And it just snowballed from there.
Can I get a beer?
I was a stupid 16-year-old kid. I wasn't around, I didn't know anything. I was having a hard time at home, and he looked like a way out, I guess, that's it. He gave me what I wasn't getting at home.
Within a year, Ronnie became pregnant and gave birth to her oldest son, Dean. 10 months later, Eugene was born. Only then did Harley and Ronnie marry. Over the next 6 years, the Prices had 3 girls, Debbie, Terry, and Sherry. Eventually, the Prices settled in Wyandotte, Michigan, just outside of Detroit. But as the family grew, Harley's drinking increased. Soon, his drunken forays turned into a full-blown nightmare for his wife and children.
Go up there too.
They lived in a constant state of fear, never knowing when Harley would erupt.
Where have you been?
Out. Having a little fun, a little recreation.
We've been waiting here since 3
Don't
o'clock.
start with me.
What?
Don't start with me.
You could have
Oh,
called.
shut up.
He'd come home late at night, and then, you know, we'd hear my mom and him arguing.
Yeah? So put him to
I
bed.
need your help.
When he wasn't drinking, he could be one of the nicest people you ever met. It's, you know, it's just, that's what the alcohol done to him. It just turned him into, you know, a bad person, and he just had no control over it.
You guys stay here. I'll be right back.
On more than one occasion, Harley took his children along as he made his rounds at the local bars. He would lock them in the car and then disappear for hours at a time.
One evening, I was waiting for Harley to come home with the kids. He had taken them out. It was rainy, it was cold. And the kids, when I got there, the kids were all curled up in the car, and he was in the bar drinking. I was very upset. I was very angry because they'd been in there. From the way I looked at it, they were there almost all day, and he didn't care. I mean, you don't leave kids in a locked car in the cold weather, but he didn't care.
At other times, Harley would use the children as pawns in a sadistic game he would play with their mother.
Okay, this is the way it is for everybody. You kids have to make a choice. Both of you. You have to choose. If your mom and me split, if she goes, who do you want to stay with? Me or her, huh? Me? Huh? Me? Do you want to stay with me, or do you want to go with her?
You did. We want to stay with you.
We were scared if we said our mother
They want to stay with their dad.
that my dad would get very angry and upset. And that would either start another fight with my mom and dad, or else we would end up getting spanked, or there would be some kind of retaliation.
In 1963, the Price family grew larger, but the new baby, Jimmy, was born with an intestinal blockage and a defective heart. For Ronnie, a bad situation turned worse.
He had the heart surgery when he was 3 months old, and then it was in and out of the hospital for you know, a year. He was always, he'd be home for maybe a day, and then he'd be back in again.
In 1964, tragedy struck. During a freak storm, the Price's house was hit by lightning and engulfed in flames. Everyone escaped, but the house was completely destroyed, and with it, all of the family's possessions.
After the fire, I cracked, I broke down. And from there, it just snowballed. It was just too much for me anymore.
Ronnie felt she could no longer tolerate Harley's abuse. With the help of a friend, she fled back home to New York. 2 weeks passed before she realized the painful consequence of her actions. She had gotten away from her husband, but in the process, she had lost her children as well.
I called these people, social services, and I told them that I would like to have my children. You know, I had left, I want to have my children, and they told me absolutely not, that the only way I could get them would be to go back to my husband. And I told them no, because if I went back, he'd kill me.
A social services representative stepped in to protect the children. The 3 girls and the baby were sent to the St. Vincent Sarah Fisher Home, an orphanage just outside of Detroit. Eugene and his older brother, Dean, remained with their father.
Hi.
Several months passed before Harley finally took Eugene and Dean to the orphanage to visit their sisters.
We're okay, too. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you go to school here?
Yeah.
Too bad.
Yeah.
When we went and seen the girls at Sarah Fisher, it was more or less we were just glad to see each other, because we hadn't seen each other for a period of time. And while we were there, you know, we're anticipating that we're going to get the family back together. You know, I think that was part of the conversation, and that everything would be fine. After we got done talking with my sisters, which didn't seem like a long period of time, my dad says, well, it's time for us to leave. That was the last time we seen him. Haven't seen him since.
A few months later, Dean and Eugene were taken from their father and placed in the foster care system. Over the next few years, they would be shuttled from one family to another. Eugene eventually served in the Army, then settled down and started his own family. In 1971, Eugene and Dean were reunited with their mother. 12 years later, their father, Harley, passed away. Today, Eugene is determined to rebuild the family that was torn apart so long ago.
My sisters and my brother Jimmy have always been in the back of my mind. I love them, I miss them. My ultimate goal is to bring us all back together. You know, Dean and I deserve to see them, and they deserve to see us and know a little bit about their original family.
Update. On the night of our broadcast, Eugene was overjoyed to learn that Sherry, the youngest of his long-lost sisters, had seen the story and was anxious to contact him.
I started crying. My husband said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" You know, I said, "That's me. That's me." You know, I said, "That's our family." And he just started crying. I got my kids up, and then he started calling the show as soon as they showed the number on it.
When Eugene and Sherry spoke on the phone that evening, Eugene was saddened to learn that his younger brother Jimmy had died of heart disease in 1973. However, he was thrilled to know that Sherry, Terry, and Debbie had all been adopted by the same family and had been searching for Eugene and his brother Dean as well. On February 7th, 1993, all of the Price children gathered for an emotional reunion at a restaurant near Eugene's home in Taylor, Michigan. It was their first time together in 29 years.
It's a miracle to me. I thought the reunion would never come to this. I thought we'd never see each other again. But it happened.
Oh my God!
And we've seen each other for the first time after 20-some years.
You look just like me.
My son, he started crying, my wife started crying, my daughter started crying. It was really exciting.
It's exciting to know we now have a whole new family. We have the family that we've been missing all these years, that I have tried to find.
This is my oldest girl, Tracy. This is my next oldest girl, Ginger.
In reuniting with their sisters, Eugene and his brother Dean almost got more than they bargained for. A small, divided family had suddenly blossomed into a joyful clan of uncles, aunts, nephews, and nieces.
Now I got 3 sisters that I'm going to be able to see, and I haven't seen in years. It's just unbelievable. I mean, I'm thrilled to death to have them back. Now we'll be able to spend the rest of our lives together.
Join me next time. Perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery.